Tēnā koutou katoa. Is that anywhere near right? Yeah. I was really keen to do some more, but I was afraid I'd get it wrong and end up ordering a pizza or something like that. So thanks for putting up with me. First up I want to thank the local elders, the local Maori community, and all of the Kiwis that are here for welcoming and accepting us Aussies so warmly. Last night, all day yesterday, fantastic effort, guys. Thank you for bringing us all on board. Okay, just want to have a quick run through about a project that we did. Dawned on us the other day. It was this time last year. A couple of the guys were partway through the relay at the time, so we thought we'd run through, give you an idea. Hopefully it might spark a bit of an idea amongst some of the rest of you around there, what a little association can pull off if you bite off more than you can chew and then chew like hell. And so I'm really glad they took this photo in Nepal, because I've seen it about 15 times already since we were here yesterday, so it's just as well they did. Unbelievable event. Wherever the next one ends up being, try and get to it. It was career changing for me. The two things I brought away from it was what an incredible community we've got. Family around the entire, around the world, basically. 550 ranges, 72 different countries. The main thing I brought away from it was how well off we are and how hard some of these people are doing it, all trying to do exactly the same work that we're doing. So I thought it's about time that we try to help out somewhere along the way. The TRA at the time, probably fair to say, had been a little bit quiet for the previous years. There was a bunch of us, Barry Batchelor, you might know, went around and headhunted a whole pile of us, a bit of young blood, apart from myself, to try to get it up and going again. I seem to remember that most of us were fairly hungover the morning of the AGM, and so anyway, we picked it up. At the time, Kate Burton was the chair of the TRA, and over a little while, we sort of refloated the boat, got it going up a bit, but we thought it'd be good to put a bit of wind into the sails and try and get it going, get it moving a bit. So we wanted to fly the flag for the TRA. The other thing with Tasmania, I'm originally a Queenslander, been with Parks 20 years in Queensland and then about 12 years or so down in Tassie. For those that aren't aware, Tassie's really small. If you took it here and dumped the top of Tasmania on where we are now, you'd fall off the end of it before you got to Wellington. So it's only a really small place, but we never mix. The only time we ever seem to get together is when we're at fires and stuff like that, which is not really the best time to pull up and have a chat about what you're up to and your life story and all that sort of thing. So the idea was try to pull people in from around the state and get them all to mix a bit. And of course we wanted to raise some funds and equipment to try and help out, as I say, folks from somewhere else that really needed the work. So this is where the collaboration sort of really kicked off. None of us had done anything like it before. There's not really any guidebook on how to do this kind of thing. So we just made it up as we go along, and I spoke to the unstoppable force of Jo, wherever she is, down the front here again. And between Jo put us in touch with the guys at the Thin Green Line, who were probably sick of me emailing back and forwards and asking questions and trying to get ourselves organised. There were some of the things that we wanted to make sure that we were going to do, and that was be financially accountable. This is going to be the public's money, people donating money, and we wanted to make sure that it could all be tracked through if needed. We needed a platform, some sort of a platform, so the Thin Green Line guys organised that we could use their My Cause site. So we sort of changed the look of that, put a couple of our photos and badges and things in there. And we also needed a link on the ground, some people wherever we were going to help out at that stage. And that's where Conservation International came in. So to choose who we helped out, we rode on the coattails of a process that the Thin Green Line had only recently run, a worldwide application process. And so we were able to select from that. So we got our committee together and we eventually came up with the guys in Timor-Leste. They put together a really good application. One of the things that we thought we needed to do was have something tangible. So people give us money, we wanted to be able to show them things. People like to see shiny things showing up for all their money. And these guys had a pretty good list of some of the things they want. So the Forest Guards, I'd never heard much about Timor-Leste, or certainly not the Forest Guards. So there's 12 of them look after 165,000 hectares of land. It's their first and only national park. It's only a really young nation. All the villages are actually inside the national park, so it's part of their culture being inside this land that they've always wanted to protect. The total budget, US dollars, was $54,000 for parks. That's everything. That's all the wages, the buildings, the vehicles, that kind of thing. The bikes that they're getting around on were their own bikes. The government bikes had fallen apart about 8 years ago. And so they've been cobbling these bikes together. And so that was one of the main things that they wanted. Suited us, it was nice and shiny. We could organise it, we could buy a couple. We were hoping we might be able to pick up a couple, 3 maybe, something like that. But anything would have been a bit of a bonus for them. So for those that aren't aware, Timor-Leste is sort of one of our closest neighbours, directly north of West Australia, up there. As I say, the villages are sort of scattered throughout the park. And the local people have got a real ingrained sense of protecting their area, protecting the places that they live. But recently, it's over the last 10, 20 years or so, it's been slowly eaten away by outsiders, which might sound familiar to a lot of traditional owners in the room at the moment. So we thought they were good guys to go with. So they began. The endless Teams meetings, the phone calls back and forwards, hundreds of emails around. A lot of the time, as I say, we don't know what we're doing, so we're figuring stuff out on the go. A lot of things that we did need to organise. Eric did a massive amount of work behind the scenes. Things like insurance and stuff like that that we hadn't even thought of, public liability insurance. Permits, the logistics of trying to get people around on this bit of a trip that we were going to do. So the plan was to kick off right up on the top north coast, a little place called Penguin, up on the top north coast of Tasmania, or La Truida, and then we were going to set sail. A bit of a mix. Most of it was on foot, using established walking tracks and routes. Some of it was on kayak, and some of it was on bikes. And yeah, we needed a lot of plan Bs and plan Cs and things like that, because no one else would be silly enough to take on something like this while COVID was in full swing. And so yeah, there was a lot of other things to take into consideration. So the first stretch, 86 kilometres, Jolene came down and set us off on our course, which was awesome to have her down there. She's holding the ceremonial toilet brush. We were trying to think of something that we could pass on that could do the whole thing. And we thought we should do something that all rangers have spent time on. So we got the golden toilet brush. And it was one of the two things that was passed from group to group. This was relay style thing, held aloft there by Joe. The other thing that was passed on from group to group was Darren, who's in the room as well. So he did the entire thing, 525 kilometres. So he was the one commentary. There he is. So there was a couple of really boring speeches at the beginning. Probably mine was the worst one. The head of parks at the time, Jason Jacoby, hats off to him, he's really supportive of the TRA, came up as well. He told me early on in the piece that he didn't want parks to swamp this because it was a TRA event. We're doing it all in our own time. I'm pretty certain that he just didn't want Parks to be too involved in case it went pear-shaped. But anyway, great to have his support. But the most important one for me was the welcome to country that we were offered by Auntie Erica, who we were on her country. She came down, she gave us this really, really awesome welcome. Wished us safe travels. She knew that if we looked after the land would look after us on the way through, which was a really good thing to hear. It also struck a chord with me at that time. Here am I thinking that, yeah, we're doing all this great. We've got our $1 million boots, we've got the tents, we've got satellite tracking, we've got all this sort of thing. And then I thought, hang on, these people have been walking this country for 60,000 years. None of that. Yep. So to have her on board, and she was also really moved that we were helping out Indigenous people somewhere else as well. So it was a great way to kick off. I've only got a certain amount of time, so I can't do too many photos of the trip on the way through. But a lot of you might be aware of Cradle Mountain, the overland tracks. Probably, well, it is our icon park down in Tasmania. So the guys got through some pretty tricky weather, and this is where we got into, which is what's now called the Tasmanian Wilderness World Heritage Area. We wanted to make sure that we did it exactly the same way as the public would have to do it. We didn't want to take any shortcuts just because we were rangers. We're doing it all in our own time. We all took leave. So we had to book our way through on the overland track. We had to walk north to south like the public do. And anyway, Jason, who's in the room as well, and Darren and a couple of the other guys set sail from there. This is when COVID came into play. Just as I was starting to arrive at Cradle Mountain to get the guys underway the next day, heard on the news that there'd been an outbreak at the southern end of the overland track and they were going to lock it down. And so we did have a plan B, C, D and E in place already. But the plan at the time was just get the guys out on the track. If they want to come and get us, they're going to have to find us. And by the time we're 6 days in, the thing might have been lifted anyway by then. So yeah, the guys set sail through there. I have to train them up next time. All the photos we've got along the overland track are all shot vertically. And so they just don't fit on these things. So, but through some spectacular country, across the highest plateau, highest area of the walk. The guys actually climbed the highest mountain, Mount Ossa in Tasmania. It was a bit of a side trip, as you do. So they kept making their way down. So they've come out the other end of it, and that's where we swung over then. There's a section of the Wilderness World Heritage Area there that's pretty much untracked. Incredibly thick scrub through there, 100 metres an hour, and you're doing really well to get through there. And it would have been quite a long stretch to get through it. We wouldn't have been able to work out timings and that sort of thing. And we generally don't push that people go off track anyway, so we cheated a bit here, ducked out of the World Heritage Area and got on the bikes from there. We could cover a fair bit of country pretty quickly. I think Darren mentioned that he covered more country in one day than he had in the last 6 days on the bikes. One of the major bridges that we were sort of relying on being there got burnt down by forest protesters, so Darren and the rest of the guys had to carry the bikes through the river to get down there. Fair way further down the road, about another 40 kilometres down the road, the guys swung back into the World Heritage Area. This area had only just come over to us from forestry. There's a pretty big handover back in about 2014. And this was also the site of a pretty big wildfire that went through there in 2019. And I understand a fair bit of the smoke from these big fires ended up in New Zealand, got dumped on you guys. So this is the site of an old hut that was burnt down. It had some pretty heavy-duty sprinklers running around it for a week prior to the fire. But when you get a button grass fire that covered 10,000 hectares in about 2 hours, you're not going to stop that. So it ended up taking out this section. And this was also the first section, or one of the sections, where things started to get a little bit interesting. We had a little bit of geographical embarrassment, didn't we, Eric? Yeah, he's putting his head. Yeah. Nah. Well, we've got to talk about it. So what had happened here was one section of track out of the 525 kilometres that we didn't actually look at because we thought, she'll be right. What can go wrong in there? Time's up. I didn't see that coming. Anyway, so the fire had gone through. It was an old osmiridium mining area in there, and what we didn't think about, when the fire went through, it's taken out all the vegetation underneath and exposed every little walking track and animal track and everything everywhere. So there was just dozens of different routes that the guys could have taken. The maps didn't line up with where the track actually was. So we were doing a bit of pinging back and forwards. The guys were in the drizzle out there, asking if they were in the right position. I was looking at it on the GPS on the computer back home, trying to guide them left or right. Yeah, forward 200 metres, you might be, turning left, and there should be another vehicle fair way ahead. So this went back and forwards just through the Garmin inReaches. I was sitting back in a comfy chair with a beer. These guys were out there struggling away through it. So, but we got there eventually. So after that, there was a bit more of a bike ride, and then we linked up with Lake Pedder. Lake Pedder, 50 years ago this year, the original Lake Pedder, was flooded as part of a massive hydro scheme that was happening back in Tasmania at the time. Huge protests went on. They didn't win. We're left with what looks like a great water body, and it is. Nice spot to go for a look, but certainly nothing like what the original lake was down there. So it was about 40 kilometres on the kayaks. We did. Having been out in the southwest for about 12 years, and anyone that's out in southwest Tasmania knows that if you get 2 days like this in spring, there's something coming. It doesn't last. It might be a bit like Southland, I think, I'm not sure, but absolute mirror across it. It was the one really cruisy part of the trip. It was dead flat, which is one of the reasons that this is the only section of the walk I actually did, or the trip that I did. We could carry lots of beer and Hawaiian shirts for our traditional Hawaiian night and that kind of thing. So we kept on going. Meanwhile, Shelley, that's in the room somewhere as well, hiding, no doubt. Our southernmost TRA ranger or member was all the way down on Macquarie Island. Flicked me an email early on in a piece and said, all the best with it. Wish I could be part of it. So she was. Herself and Kim, one of her offsiders, did 40 kilometres down through there, dodging the elephant seals and 400,000 penguins, and did the 2-day trip down there. So if you're not real familiar with where Macquarie is, 1,800 kilometres south of Hobart. So it was great that she was able to do that. We also had other volunteers walking on some of the other little islands up to the north as well. So we came down to the bit that was supposed to be simple. A long track, 152 kilometres, involved an airdrop or a swap over of members partway along. We knew that weather was coming, so Darren and the guys pushed a couple of really big hard days to try to get through all these creek crossings that they were going to have to do, and they were pulled up by flooding about one crossing short of where they were hoping to get to. I only found out most of this afterwards because I could possibly have pulled the pin on the whole show and just got them out there. They had flooding water through their tents, stuff like that. They actually got to the bridge over the main river, but the bridge was the only thing that wasn't underwater. So when they've come off the bridge, they've ended up chest deep in water for an hour to get out of there. Apparently, Jason had a great line from it, is that next time Brendan has a brilliant idea, tell him to keep it to himself. But anyway, And then we also have to chase the wind that was coming as well. So I was sending these guys messages about you've got a big front coming through again after this, and there's a section where you've got a road, it's only about 400 metres that you've got to get across, and you've got to do a couple of shuffles to get everybody back and forwards. Talking to Jason only a couple of days ago there, he said another hour or so they wouldn't have got through, so we would have been stranded on the other side, flooded from behind, and then not being able to get out the other end. But I like to say they had it pretty cruisy like this all the way, you know. It was South Coast track. They finally got right down to the bottom end of Tasmania. It did have a couple of really nice days to dry out before they got back up to where we were. And they finished up at a place called Cockle Creek. It's Australia's southernmost road. We all met up down there, and it was awesome just to see everybody sort of back in one place. Come out safely. There's an awful lot could have gone wrong. Could have been wildfires, could have been snow, could have been you name it, it was going to happen. But somehow we got through the whole thing. Is that another fake one? No, all good. I think we're doing it right. So what did we achieve? We had those three things that we wanted to achieve up in the beginning. Certainly brought us all together. It was the biggest thing the TRA's ever done, probably the biggest social thing like this that Parks has done down there for a long time anyway. Got a hell of a lot of people involved from all across the state. Parks were great, got to give it to them. They helped us with support on the ground, a lot of logistics, things like that. They're still a bit nervous all the way through until people actually emerged out the other end of it. And we even wheeled out some retired rangers to give us a help, which was a really good thing. So, another thing we wanted to do is raise the profile of the TRA. We ended up having a writer from Australian Geographic embedded in the walk. He came down, did a couple of sections of it with us. I spoke to him at the end and said, do you think there'll be enough to put some sort of a story together? And he said his biggest problem was going to be what not to put in, because there was so much that they could talk about. Worldwide social media interest, donations coming in from around the world, radio interviews, a lot of local papers got involved as well, and a flash new website that one of our volunteers or one of the TRA members put together to us. Well, the main thing is that we built tyres, so we pulled in over $22,000, which we thought was pretty good considering it was the middle of COVID. A lot of people had lost their jobs. A lot of the businesses that we hit up for funding just had no money, or they weren't game to give what they had away. So we thought, 22 grand's done pretty well. But the big thing is that talking to the guys from Conservation International is that shone the light on the forest guards up there. The CI guys were actually approached by the government afterwards about it, and then we achieved enough to buy 6 motorbikes, which was just awesome. And we were going to pick up a couple more first aid kits and things like that for them just to finish it off. The government's come back and said, is there any chance you can leave the smaller stuff to us but buy 2 more motorbikes for them? So the Conservation International guys on the ground up there, Mendez, did his thing, got them brought in from Indonesia with helmets and all the gear, all the maintenance stuff and all that sort of thing. Got them all set up really well. And it's really increased their standing in the community. The community's seen that what these guys are doing is so important that people from thousands of kilometres away are willing to help them out. So, and it's first steps to building a bit of ongoing relationship with the guys there. We'll keep working with Joe and everyone else. Maybe looking at twinning agreements in the future, and we'll go from there. So we were pretty happy with the way it came up. So that's about it. But one final thing from this is what you get from the in-reaches. And we finally got out the other end of the walk. We were all sitting around. Darren, once you get to know him, really quietly spoken, never fusses about anything. I'd had about 130, 140 pings on my phone during the whole trip, so I just got used to this sound coming in. We're all sitting down, having a bit of a breather, and the phone pinged off again. and this is what was on it. Pretty much four words summed it all up, you know, and it's typical Darren. Thanks. Yeah, all good. So thanks for listening, guys. But before we do, I'm going to hand quickly over to Pete, if he's floating around, so that they can plug their relay that they're about to do. Nick's been organising the whole thing, but he's also the one person in the room that's in a wheelchair, so it's going to be a bit difficult for him, I think, at the moment. So anyway, he's going to come up, just give her a real quick one. The bell will be soon. Okay, thanks for listening, guys, and I'll hand you over to Nick.
Okay, we've got a working group because we're also doing a ranger relay, and this one's a little bit more interesting because it's going through three states three states and territories in Australia. It's going to start in Victoria, go through New South Wales and into the ACT. So it's actually going to be a collaboration between three rangers associations. We're walking the Australian Alpine Walking Track, which is about 680 kilometres, and it goes through some of the most rugged terrain in the country up the Great Dividing Range. So we're hoping to start on the 1st of November in Walhalla, where the beginning is, and finishing on the 11th of December, World Mountain Day, in Namadgi National Park in Canberra. And that's also coincides with their open day. So the open day at Namadgi National Park, World Mountain Day, and we're aiming to do a lot of fundraising for the rangers in Mount Kenya. So that's what we're going to try and achieve. And we've got Michael from Parks Victoria who's helping us out, Nick from the ACT. We've got, Rod Gibbs, who's doing a power of work through New South Wales Parks and Power. So anyone who wants to come along, participate, and watch us on online. We've actually got a device that you carry with you, so it pinpoints you along the way. We've got a message stick, and we've got to monitor the snowfalls, the floods, and all those sorts of things. So it's going to be don't trust the maps, okay, and and any search and rescue training will be good for the rangers anyway. So all good. So this is a challenge for us, and that's what we like. Rangers, we're problem solvers, aren't we? So anything you want to add?
We're raising money for the Mount Kenya Trust. So, and there's a QR code at the bottom of this poster. So if anyone wants to donate, feel free to.
Yeah. So if you want to have a look at what we're doing, just come up and scan the QR codes, and that'll take you straight to the event. And we've got one for the event, one for the donations. So technology's amazing. I'm a bit of a technophobe, but geez, I love it.